We're now on our third story this morning. We're going to turn our attention to a very sobering, stats that were released by StatsSA that nearly 8 million individuals are now unemployed, and the joblessness rate in South Africa continues to climb. We're going to be talking to Mr. Soli Molayi from StatsSA. He's joining us via StreamYard. Soli, a very grim picture that StatsSA is painting. What are some of the key factors contributing to the rise in unemployment, and which sectors of the economy have been most affected by job losses?
Okay, thank you so much, and good morning to the listeners. I think maybe we should probably start by giving the listeners just a quick overview in terms of the numbers that we have picked up or the numbers that we have collected. So we are looking at people who are working age in South Africa. They're sitting around 41 million. So out of that 41 million, we're looking at the labor force, which is the employed and unemployed. So both those groups, they're sitting around 24.6 million. And the point that you were mentioning, that unemployment in terms of the numbers, we're sitting about 7.9 million unemployed, and employed we're sitting about 16.7 million. And the employment rate, as you have already mentioned, we are sitting around 32.1%. It's an increase by 0.2 percent points between quarter 3 and quarter 4 that we're referring. So the quarter 4 that we are talking about is quarter 4 of 2023, which is from October, November, December. And I will tell you why I'm mentioning that when I go to my other point, especially trying to respond to your point, to your question regarding the sectors or the industries that are actually how they are performing, or how did they perform in that call. So if you look at employment changes by industries, finance, transport, mining, and private household, that's where we saw an employment gain. Whereas when you look at trade, agriculture, construction, and community and social services, that's where we actually recorded a loss. I will zoom into trade. Trade, that's where you'll find your wholesalers, and also this is where you get your hotels and also your restaurants. In the quarter 4, we've picked up that actually normally in quarter 4 we notice a spike within hotels and restaurants because, as you know, it's during the festive season, and I think the hotels are anticipating the volumes of South Africans who will be coming into the establishment. But this time around, we've seen a drop because I think one can actually look at other indicators like your CPI and also the GDP numbers that we released in quarter 3, that we saw that the economy was not performing well. So the trade also, it was also giving us that indication that the hotels and restaurants were not hiring normally the hire contract workers to deal with the volumes, but in this case there was no contract workers that were hired. So those are the industries that were not performing well when you look at the others that performed well, very well.
Could you maybe elaborate on the demographic breakdown of unemployment, particularly focusing on the youth population? We know that youth unemployment is a very big problem in South Africa. What do the demographics look like as you guys have been narrowing it down?
Yes. So if you look at youth here, we're talking about 15 to 34. The youth in South Africa are more vulnerable to unemployment when you compare to the older age group, so 35 to 64. So let's use a 10-year period, meaning from 2013 to 2022 as our period, just to look at the two groups of age groups, how they performed. So in 2023, quarter 4, the youth were sitting around 34%. That is unemployment rate. Now we're sitting around 44.3%. So you could see that within a 10-year period, the youth unemployment rate have increased by almost 10%. If you look at the 35 to 64, the same period, 2013, we were sitting around 15%. Now we're sitting around 23%. That is for 35 and 64. And what is in the same period, if you look at the youth, their unemployment rate it's higher than the national unemployment rate. Remember, our national unemployment is sitting at 32%, whereas for youth, we're sitting around 44.3%. So that is what we have also picked up in terms of the breaking down of numbers. If you look at it by race,
Mm,
or maybe even before we get to race, let's look at the level of education, because I think this is also something that we also have to share with the listeners. When you look at the level of education using official unemployment rate, graduates, they're sitting around 9.6%. But with graduate, what is quite interesting is that if you look at it within the 10-year period, it started at the lower base around 5%. Now it's sitting around 9.6%. So we'll see in the next quarters whether will it move to the double digit. Less metric unemployment rate is quite high. It's sitting around 38%, which is above the national unemployment rate, including also metric. So if you have a metric, the unemployment rate is sitting around 33.7. So less metric, and those who have metric, their unemployment rate is above the official unemployment rate. Those who've got other tertiary education, their unemployment rate is sitting around 20.6%. So those are the breakdown that I want to share with the listeners now.
mm. I'm pretty sure, while you do stats, there are probably some forecasts that you might have made, and looking at the trends going into the other quarters of the new year. What forecasts have you made, going into 2024 and probably 2025? Do you guys, see, an increase, or the situation looks, bleak, and it looks like it will further deteriorate when it comes to unemployment?
Yes. So when coming to focusing, it's Reserve Bank and National Treasury that are doing the focusing. So from our end, we're just providing them the numbers, and I think in due course they are the ones who will be providing the focusing. And I think even today, when we're listening to the Minister of Finance, there will be probably some indication in terms of how they see the next 2 financial years going to look like. And I think it will give us an indication in terms of what is their thinking around it, because we are not part of the planning, but we are providing the numbers to the planners.
Mm. No, I think we're going to leave it there. Solly Molayi, painting a really bleak picture there of unemployment in the country. Thanks so much for giving us your time, and I hope to chat to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
There you have it, Solly Molayi there. You're painting a very, very bleak picture. We've always known that unemployment in South Africa is a problem, but it's a problem that seems to be getting worse and worse. We're going to be listening to the finance minister later on today. He's going to be, putting out the financial plan of the country. And I'm pretty sure that the stats that StatsSA have put up are going to have a big impact on the budget vote later on. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be taking the news with Zaid Jedward.